phrases like toxic masculinity is a phrase widely resonating in the media, and I'm not a fan. I think that is an absolutely unhelpful, if not downright damaging way to be talking about the problem. Counterproductive.
That was the voice of Justin Wells, this week's guest. Justin is the Chief Program Officer of Envision Education, an organization that coaches public school districts on the practices of deeper learning and equity while running a small chartered network of schools in the San Francisco Bay Area. Justin and I were part of a cohort of widespread impact organizations, and I really learned a lot from him. You know, in this conversation, after sharing our masks, you're going to learn hopefully 4 things. 1, how active project-based learning gets students buy-in and prepares them for society. 2, how girls are outperforming boys in all school-based metrics. 3, why we need to stop using the term toxic masculinity. And 4, how teachers can be the coach on the side rather than the judge. Take out your notes and let's start the show. As a male educator at your school site, it can get lonely. Only 23% of K-12 educators in America are male. And just think about what this gender gap means for your male students. They experience disproportionate levels of discipline. This is a show for male educators who want to feel more understood by their community and want to create emotionally safe classrooms and schools for the next generation of male students. Welcome to Unmasking with Male Educators. Justin, welcome. This is our new show called Talking with Educators, Unmasking with Educators. It's part of the Taking Off the Mask series. So thank you for being here with us.
It's an honor to be here with you, Ashanti. I love it.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad that we get to have this conversation, and I'm excited about where we're going. What I want to do first is I would like you to introduce yourself, tell folks what you want them to know about you, what's important for them to know as we jump into this conversation about education, about our own masks, and about what we're seeing in schools to support and better support not only all students, but specifically in these contexts, the young men who we notice.
Great. Yeah. Justin Wells, I'm a teacher and been in education for, over 20 years now, largely taught English at the middle and high school levels. And now I've been with this organization Envision Education since it started. So I kind of find myself now not in the classroom, but supporting teachers and students, both in our set of schools in the San Francisco Bay Area. But I also have the distinct pleasure of supporting a group of PD providers that work with schools around the country with our consulting branch, Envision Learning Partners. I worked with that group for a long time. And what really drives me is I just was lucky to have great teachers when I was young. I was drawn to the beauty and honor of the profession, and because it just had such a meaningful impact on my life as a boy and young man. And I just wanted to kind of do for others kind of what I felt grateful to receive. And I think what I'm particularly interested in, and what I think school can do so well if it's got the right approach, is you can help young people create beautiful things they're proud of. Of course, I was a writing teacher, so I got to work with that mode, and helping people create things that they love and are proud of. It's intoxicating feeling, and it kind of spreads into all different aspects of identity. And so a lot of my career has been trying to kind of help schools be better at being a place where young people create beautiful work. And we can get into more details about that, but I'm just psyched to be kind of in the middle of my career and being able to kind of have that be my calling.
That's exciting. I like the word. It's intoxicating, the joy of how when things are going well, right? And it's also, you can definitely feel really on the other side of that when it's not. It can feel like a never
So
ending.
demoralizing, right?
Oh
And yeah, I
man,
want out of here, right? Yeah.
man. Well, what we're gonna do first, we're gonna share our masks and our teacher kind of persona masks. And I think you've made a mask before in the past, but
Hmm.
in this mask, it's just like as a teacher, when you show up in a whether it's in the current setting when you're teaching the PD professionals or when you're teaching when you work in
Hmm.
the classroom teaching, just describe one of your. We're gonna have you write it. Go ahead and fill it out on a piece of paper. So we'll use your
Yeah.
paper as like left and right side. The left side you can fold it in half or draw a
Yeah.
line down the middle. Left side is the front of the mask, right side is the back of the mask. So
Yeah.
take a couple of seconds, or maybe a minute, and we'll draw our mask, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. So what do people see of me at my front of the mask in my role as educator, and kind of what's behind that on the right
Yeah,
side? Yep.
the parts that are behind that you feel comfortable sharing. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that other part of the mask. Yeah. And so being in education for 20 years, I mean, I will just talk as we draw, I guess.
Hmm.
Were you was education your first career?
More or less, although I had a beautiful time in my 20s as a performing artist. I loved music. I did the songwriter, um, fell in with a great group of fellow musicians, kind of starting in college era. So I did give myself a little time and space in my 20s to, yeah, just pursue that, creative expression.
Mm,
Um, and I had my day jobs and this, that, and the other, but was able to, yeah, I was able to kind of record a record with a group of old friends, in my mid to late 20s, still, pay the bills by, I think I worked in different kind of like editing and publishing companies, small companies.
mm,
But I knew that teaching would be, really require just tons of dedication, and it just kind of become its own consuming creative expression, essentially. So I was
mm.
glad that I started teaching when I was about 30, actually. Got my teaching credential and master's, here locally at UC Berkeley. And then when I was ready to walk into a classroom, I felt like I was really ready to focus and not trying to do multiple things, because I knew that it's a career and a profession that you just really need to kind of focus and dedicate to. And it's also its own form of creative expression, which
Mm,
I've always loved. So I actually loved moving from, making music to kind of helping kids, write and create. And I think also that having a background in my 20s where I was actively in the creative arts has always helped me be a better teacher. And I've tried to model that to young people too. Like, let's, what is your creative outlet and how can you bring that to your learning? That's why I love project-based learning, because people can
mm,
find particular modes of expression that they love and they can use it to kind of like demonstrate their learning. So I would show that to kids. I was like, hey, let's interpret a poem. Only I'm going to like make a small song about it because that happens to be an art form that I'm comfortable with.
mm,
But if you're comfortable in a different form of art or expression or athletics or whatever, find your way to connect, to this poem. So just knowing that that's a powerful way to feel connected as an artist, I was able to bring to my teaching when I was in my 30s.
right on, right on. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that that was your journey, so it's so exciting. Okay, so this teacher persona, this teacher mask. Um, all righty, how you doing over there?
All right, I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay. So you got the front, the things that you gladly used to let or still let in terms of whatever role educator you want to put in there. And then the back are things you either don't talk about much or you don't share as much.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now in this new model, this new show, we're inviting us to share the mask and you could decide who goes first. And we'll share the front and the back together. And then anything you want to say about any of those pieces as you're sharing it or you want to break it up, and then the next person will share after that. So it allows us to like be able to just kind of share the front and back right together and then the next person will go. So as a guest, you decide who goes first.
Oh wow. Well, I'm happy to jump in, Conti.
Okay.
Um,
Did you draw a picture?
well, I have kind of, I
Oh,
don't know if you can
oh,
see it. Yeah. Hold on.
okay.
I did.
So
I
maybe just
did. There is kind of a face.
Hold it so we can't see the. Oh, I see. So it's
Oh
like
God.
okay, so they're connected. They're connected.
I kind of thought about a drama mask, right? With the
There you
kind of
go.
like the silhouette of the kind of like the yeah, that kind of like Zen concept of the draw. I come from a theater arts background, so I kind of saw that drama Greek mask type of
Yes.
kind of vibe.
Yes.
So, but anyway, this was the um,
That's great.
yeah,
That's
this was my
great.
left side,
All
and
right.
then it flips to the other side. So I just wrote some words that kind of capture a few things about kind of what's on the front of the mask, what's on the back.
Fantastic. All right.
Should I share some of those?
That'll be great. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I just kind of am always aware that like, and even look what I'm wearing right now, right? Like a lot of people know me with my English teacher uniform, right? I wear a sweater vest. And there is a bit of a persona that's so visible to folks of kind of that Dead Poet Society style English teacher that would look very, comfortable in some sort of like, English prep school kind of background that knows all the, William Blake poems by heart type of thing. So, a little bit maybe overly so professorial, maybe even a little stuck up type concept. I know that when I first people see me, and what I'm wearing right now kind of like captures it a little bit.
Mm,
Um, there is that oh, you look like an English teacher kind of
mm,
and also just sort of like my family ancestry kind of goes to England, Ireland, that kind of so that's also kind of like identity wise I
mm.
think plays the part as well. So I'm kind of just aware, and I think I do feel like I perhaps know that that's a little bit how I'm seen. And I can see myself sometimes leaning into that identity because it kind of tracks with expectations. And it's a bit of a dying breed as well. And so there's like one of those old guard, English teachers. Here's one that's still kicking around type of vibe. And it is. I think it can be a little bit of a scary persona to some. I totally acknowledge.
Yeah.
Especially sort of, young, folks, young men of color and things like that might be like, okay, do I have anything to talk about with this guy type of vibe?
Mm.
Um, so that was just kind of some things that occurred to me on the front of the mask.
All right. And what's on the back of the mask? What are some things you don't talk about or don't share as much?
Well, I think the back of the mask is just acknowledging that while there is that aspect of my identity that might come on the surface is, certainly there's complexities that I'm actually someone that's really comfortable moving across all kinds of different groups of people. So it's almost sort of like, I can kind of wear the sweater vest, but kind of walk into lots of different rooms. And um, and in some ways, like there's a kind of a humility and vulnerability that I think doesn't feel like it plays to that type that I think that I try to nurture and develop, that I think is helpful to me and kind of just connecting with other people. And I'm also someone that doesn't have it all figured out. And I think that persona that I described earlier is someone that's often seen as like, oh, they've got their at least little corner of the world. They know all their English poets type of thing. They've got things
Mm.
figured out. And I actually like to, under the mask, try to model the ways in which I don't have things figured out. And I certainly try to have young people see this with me when I work with them so that you can, kind of like have a projection to the world that you're proud of, but realize that you're always a work in progress. So, and I would also say there's an awareness of like my privilege or just the ways that which like I had a great, like I loved school as a kid, and
Mm.
not everybody does. Not everybody has like the right conditions or been given a great sort of pathway to having had that positive experience. And
Mm.
so that kept me, I knew that I stayed in education in part because I had a positive experience. And I know that I
Mm.
want to serve a lot of folks that didn't have a positive experience in
Mm.
school. So just having that kind of behind the mask consciousness is something that I try to do. I think I probably could even be better at. But I do
Mm.
think that when I work with young people or even young teachers long enough, they can start to see that that's what is behind the mask, and it kind of helps. I want people to be real comfortable in whatever is their version of the sweater vest, right? Like
Mm,
there's lots of different identities to proudly carry in the world, and you
mm,
can cross all kinds of boundaries in whatever is your version of this. And if I can show them that I can do that, that help people can see that, oh, I can do that too, right? So
thank you. Thank you. Um, so funny story, to me, funny story, but I got invited to this big event in LA, and I have a friend who's like a stylist. He helps people kind of figure out, what they should wear. They help them maybe show up in a
yeah.
really positive way. So we met at the store that I knew had, clothes that would be for big and tall for my size. And and I walked over to where, and I go to this store pretty often, so I get a sweater vest every, once a year, because that's my thing. And he was like, "What is that for?" And I was like, "Oh, that's what I mean, whatever we get, this is gonna have to go on top." So he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
what? He was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, I like, this is what I wear. You know what I'm saying? This is what I wear. And he was like, well, I want you just to be mindful that, I'm here to help you to stretch a little bit beyond whatever. So I said, all right, I'm just letting you know, I'm still buying one. So I don't know if we're going to be able to wear it with what you buy, what you putting together. And I think that was really funny. So I didn't wear it as a teacher. I wore it mostly in the work that I do now, speaking when I go speaking mostly to educators. If I'm not wearing a t-shirt, so which is what I'm wearing right now. So thank you for the sweater vest story, because I find myself sporting one of those pretty often too. So good, thank you.
Yeah, love it.
Um, so the mask I drew, this is what I drew today. I'm not sure, some kind of
Yeah,
some kind of something on the head. I don't know if it's a crown or if it's some kind of like adornment or a hat, some kind of beanie. But the words I wrote were supportive, caring, and takes it serious. That's my messy writing. Take it
yeah.
serious. Supportive,
Nice.
caring, and take it serious. And I think as a teacher, like when I came to education called me. And so I was really deciding that I cared a lot about the students and their success. I cared. Oftentimes, I felt in many cases that I was caring more about it than them. Now that's the
Hmm.
story I was telling myself, because I'm like saying to them, "Hey, I'm here every day after school, before school. I'm here at lunch. You don't come in and get help. I'm here to support you. You're not doing well academically. I don't want to have to call your house every other week to tell on you. Like, work with me. Like, I want to treat you like a young adult. But if you keep acting like a child, then you're forcing me to have to then get your family involved, which means either calling them or even showing up. And I've done some passing by in the evening to people's houses, right?
Yeah.
Because I cared a lot. And I think sometimes students be like, why are you all up in my business? Why are you taking this so serious? I'm like, you're not taking it serious enough. That's what I'm concerned about. Like, I would rather not take it this serious. I would rather just know that you are going to do your best. I will help fill in the gaps where your best doesn't meet the standard of what we're learning. But
Hmm.
ultimately, you're not even giving me your best. So I don't even know where to start. You can't be like,
Yeah.
what? You can't leave me with like, what am I supposed to do? Like, huh? Like that's
Yeah.
gap is too wide. Like, first you pick up a pencil. That's the first step. I don't really know what muscles to tell you to use except your fingers and your pick up the
Yeah,
pencil,
I love
right?
that.
Like, and don't put the pencil back down until class is over, right? Like, how about we start there? How about we? And so I think like that is one of those things that on the outside that oftentimes showed up is more like I was aggressive or I was mean because I was like really like pushing students because I wanted them to be at their best. And so the things that I didn't share much, or as a student, most of my students who were in my class knew that I was somewhat unorganized, but unorganized. Um, I took it personal if a student failed. So not only did I show them I was taking it serious, I think behind the scenes, I was taking it personal. Like, I felt like it was my failure when I had to give a student an F. And I was telling students, I'm not going to pass you. Like, so if you don't do the work, you're going to fail this class, but I'm going to feel bad about it. Like, I really am. And I would take it personal when I have multiple
Hmm.
students who I know are brilliant, who are talented, who can do the work if they've just cared, if they showed they cared enough, if they gave if they gave me some effort that I could see where I could help fill in the gap. That was fun. And then I put what I don't talk much about is a weekend warrior. I was like, in my early days of teaching, I still went out on the weekends pretty often. I didn't go to the pre-party, and no, definitely not the after party. I had no money for that. I went to like just the main setup for the thing,
Yeah.
whatever I could
Yeah.
slip into as a on this teacher salary. But
Yeah.
so
Gotcha.
anytime a student would like come in on Monday and be like, "Hey, what you do this weekend?" I'll be like, did you see me somewhere? Did you why are you asking me that question, right? Because
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
because I definitely wasn't a teacher on the
Yeah.
weekend. So yeah, that's the mask. That's the teacher mask. Um, so in the concept of like what you use as a teacher, what you've used as a way of helping build culture and and belonging in schools, what are some of the things right now that are either concerning you, perplexing you, exciting you? Like, we can start from any part of the conversation, but where right now are some things that are taking a lot of energy for you to to be working on? And it may be exciting energy because
Mhm.
you like building something, or maybe it's like maybe a dragging energy because it's like, man, something is not working the way I wanted to. Where are some of those things in education right now that are doing that for you?
I mentioned my calling around just I just love being part of a learner discovering taking on new skills and then being able to create something create something new and beautiful as kind of something that I just love to be part of, love to witness. Um, so that I mentioned project-based learning, kind of forms of also at Envision Education, where we're well known for giving all of our students an opportunity to tell their story as a learner. So we have this thing called portfolio defense, where um, at the end of eighth grade, 10th grade, 12th grade, the student has the floor, right? Like, step up to the front of the room, figuratively, literally, and talk about your journey so far. Like, and back it up with some evidence. What are some work you're proud of? What skills have you gained? How are you thinking about your future? Why and how are you ready for the next chapter? This is
Mm.
something of just a core aspect of our school design that we developed when I helped start Envision Education in 2003. And our first crop of seniors, um, we challenged them to do this. They were kicking and screaming a little bit. They're like, "You're not really not going to make us do this. Like, we've passed our classes. Like, you're really going to make me in the May of my senior year have to do a 45-minute presentation that's just kind of laying out kind of my learning journey." And we're like, "Yeah, we're going to ask you to do that. And if you don't, we're not going to actually give you a diploma."
Mm.
It's a mandatory assignment, so to speak,
Yeah.
but it's also like an act of creation. In other words, I think about this great student, Caleb Lawson, that actually ended up on our board of directors years later. He's a awesome young man in his 30s now. He was one of our pioneering students, and he the power of this experience on him. He actually tried his first portfolio defense. He didn't give us his best work. We told him, "You didn't pass. We want you to resubmit and revise the work." And he to your point, he approached it with more seriousness on the second pass,
Mm.
and then he did a beautiful job. And we're like, "Caleb, that was it." And he just, of course, he's like, "Wow, like, A, thank you for holding me to that higher standard. B, I did this on my own, right? Like, I'm proud of this." But it was his own work, right? His own public presentation. He had different school-based artifacts that he was talking about and how they showed his growth. And so I've just become very committed to learning experiences for young people that are like that, analogous to that, where they're challenged to create something of their own that
Mm.
that is meaningful to them, but it's also not something that they could just do by osmosis. In other words, they have to quote unquote pick up that pencil to run with your uh, you know metaphor there. They have to pick up that pencil and learn how to use it in ways they haven't learned before,
Yeah.
and then show their work, make the work public. So I
Mm.
think I think that we in education have to, yes, we have to make things quote unquote learner centered, but it's also true that we actually have to have learners. It's not all about them. They actually have to step up to meet some challenges, meet some bars that are actually kind of like present in society at large.
Mm.
And but if they feel like they're making it on their own, they're doing this kind of on their own in their own terms, then I think it helps people make a connection to education. So having experienced that and its power, I'm just really committed to the act of creation, the act of meaningful creation being something that we deliberately design into the fabric of schools and learning experiences so that more students, particularly, I think this is going to be powerful for boys and young men, feel like there's something around this that I should care about. And I think schools are failing. If we look at all the, many metrics that show that currently what we offer a lot of young people, particularly boys, is they're not, we're not connecting with them. They're not connecting with it, and it's not doing anybody any good. So I certainly haven't cracked the nut, so to speak, but I certainly am devoting my career to trying to kind of make it better than it currently is.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think one of the things you said, a couple of things in there that stood out, but I want to grab on the last one you talked about around our young men and what we're seeing with them. I think that there's plenty of data out there to show that young men are struggling. I think any educator can tell you that what they see in their classrooms on a daily basis, but the data is undeniable that on the factors of wellness and health, young men and men are struggling the most. We talk about addiction. We talk about death by despair, by suicide. We talk about incarceration. We talk about addiction, alcoholism, like so many factors of where men are struggling. And I think that I don't know that it starts when you become 18 and then you're out on life. I think we see a lot of the early signs of it in schools. And depending on what kind of school system you're in, it's easy to just be like, hey, you're going to go on to the next class. You go to the next teacher. And that's when you get to middle school. In California, there's no matriculation required in public middle schools, right?
Right.
You moving on. We ain't holding you back here in
Yeah.
eighth grade again. You got to go, right? We've been waiting for you to leave for 3 years. Now it's time for you to go be the high school problem, and they'll deal with you.
Yeah.
But then you get to high school and the rules change, right? Because you don't pass classes, you don't graduate. But you've been trained for 3 years that you just show up and you can get all F's in middle school and you going to high school, you leaving. And when you get to high school, the rules 100% change, And some of you students aren't paying attention to the new rules. And so therefore they get shocked when they're a sophomore or junior and they're realizing, oh, wait, what do you mean I got to go to continuation school? What do you mean? Like that ability for that indoctrination of what happened in middle school. And not that it was only middle school. I'm sure it even starts even earlier, but I think the idea of like, we're moving you through this system. And now then high school where everything is like counts, it changes the rules, for a lot of young people. So like, what are you seeing that is working? Or, I mean, we know there's a lot of challenges, but what are some things you all are trying, or what are some things you're noticing or that you're experimenting with to really try and support young men who we see are having a rough go at the way school is designed, the way many schools are designed?
Yeah, well, I think it's clear that the defaults to school design does not have boys, front and center as what, I recently read this book of Boys and Men by Richard Reeves. Such a great survey of what all the data is telling us, with some hypotheses about kind of what's going on, which include that, sitting in class, sitting at desk, soaking up information. If that's the mode, then girls are more successful at that mode than boys are. I mean, it's just so clear. And as we're giving more and more girls, finally, importantly, full and equal access to our educational mode, they're often running with it. They're like, great, this works for you. Finally, open the door for us. we're walking through that door
Yeah.
and we're kicking ass,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and so you see like 2/3 of folks who go to college now are women,
Yeah.
and graduating at those rates. And the GPAs are higher. Their test scores are generally higher. All the different metrics, sticking with school, et cetera. So I was, none of it was like super surprising, but it was like to see all the statistics kind of in one place and kind of one, well-written book
Yeah.
was like, I was like, wow, like we are, it's interesting how we're nicely thinking a lot about like, how do we provide more access to, like, how do we get more women in STEM and science and things like that, right? Like this is great work that we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think feminism has done such great work for us to kind of have that lens around where are girls and women disadvantaged and how do we kind of level the playing field.
Yeah.
But we're not very good or used to as a society thinking about where are boys at a disadvantage and are there structural things we should think about in terms of leveling the playing field. It's kind of like almost counterintuitive because wait, aren't men the ones with the privilege and women have to, but if we keep this up, we're going to have a largely like society where women are the ones who are educated and boys are not. And that is not a recipe for societal success. If we want to look around the world at what you have when you have like large groups of young men who don't feel connected, haven't been well educated, it's just not a good thing. And we don't need to, not that we should do this out of a fear factor, but we should be trying to have everybody thriving.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's just I'm grateful for having that kind of realization clear to me. I'm raising a boy. He just entered high school, and yet I'm thinking a lot about the messages around kind of how are we responding to this?
Yeah.
Well, phrases like toxic masculinity is a phrase widely resonating in the media, and I'm not a fan. I think that is an absolutely unhelpful, if not downright damaging way to be talking about the problem.
Yeah.
Counterproductive. Are there patterns of male behavior that are very unproductive and or even damaging? Absolutely. But should we attach the label toxic to the concept of masculinity and kind of glue those words together? No. Because what's happening, in my opinion, Ashanti, is that like we're not anymore talking about a certain kind of masculinity that's toxic. I'm an English teacher, right? I think about the grammar, right? Like adjective, toxic, not, when most of the time when you hear the word masculinity now, not most of the time, but a lot of the time, the word toxic comes in front of it. And it's no longer like a subset of masculinity. It's describing masculinity at large. Masculinity is toxic, full stop. And who wants to hear that message, right? And I would rather us think about what is like a pro-social, beautiful, honorable way to think about masculinity and have that be how we define masculinity. And the stuff that's toxic is just like, that's bad behavior. But let's not keep reinforcing that that's intrinsic to masculinity. I think that's not the message I want my son to be soaking up. I want him to feel comfortable in his identity as a boy/man and proud of that, frankly, and also kind of leaning into how do I be my best. And throwing around the word toxic is not something he's going to hear in my household, right? I'm going to call him out when he's doing antisocial, unproductive, overly aggressive behaviors, because that's bad behavior. But I'm not going to attach that. I'm not going to say those are masculine behaviors. I want him to associate his masculinity with things that are beautiful, pro-social, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the nuance there. I think I don't use that term either. I've had it. I'm not an English teacher. I told you about my dislike for my English class growing up, but I think about like when I start hearing the term come out a lot and being used, what I would hear is people fight against like not the thing that it was trying to talk about, which was behaviors, in the community, in society that were destructive, that were causing harm. Like I don't, but people were hearing that word and they were doing what you described it as. They were saying, "What are you doing? You're trying to call me toxic? You're trying to," and I think that because the term began to get used as if it was talking about all men, I think it began to get heard in a way that was not productive for the men to hear about it. And I think that's so critical, right? It's so critical, like you talked about it as an English teacher, but as we know that the way language works in our community, right? And we have
Yeah.
narratives in our community that have people repeating stories and narratives and lies. Let me just get really clean and clear. There are people who repeat lies over and over again, so they tell you things, and then what happens in society? Well, wait, people begin to believe things that are not true, not accurate, not based in any kind of facts, and I think that has created a lot of danger in our society around how do we talk about these topics? How do we talk about what behavior that we see young men displaying in high school and middle school in the community that are causing harm to others, right? And I think those are
Yeah.
I think, and so now we have to like find the ways of describing it that grabs people's attention, that lets them hear about it. How do we talk to parents about it? Like you have a value system that you've established, right? But how many parents are like, well, my kid doesn't do anything wrong, right? And I think that we have the ways of how parenting can
Hmm.
go from left to right, where it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
well, I'm not going to talk to my child about that topic because I don't want them to feel bad about themselves. But what if it's just helping them to learn how to be? What are the values that you want them to emulate? And I think that we see it a lot in the schools, right? We see the name calling. We see it in society too, right? Even on a bigger scale, right? Oh,
Yeah.
his name call. Is it wrong to call somebody a name? They just kids being kids, right? And I think we begin to like we see in society, people are just like, don't make a big deal about that. It's nothing. Bullying. Everyone dealt with it. Like all the little things and that we see pile up as well. That's just a small little thing. We don't want to need to talk about it. And I think sometimes those things become bigger in our communities, right? And I think that I don't use the topic. I don't use the language. When somebody says it, I say, well, let me just be clear about I don't use those words because people begin to mishear you. They mishear you, right? Like they don't hear what you're saying because now that word has got them thinking that you are attacking them as a being. And I think that we just have to get more. The same thing like with mental health, right? Like mental health, talking about mental health in some communities is almost like a taboo too. It's like we don't talk about mental health here. Are you saying something's wrong with
Hmm.
my kid? Are you saying something's wrong with my kid? No, I'm saying your child may need to could benefit by talking to someone. There's a lot going on that they're not
Yeah.
talking about, and it's erupting in other unhealthy ways. And I think that if we're going to try and make it easier for people to go get mental health support, then we have to talk about it in a way that doesn't make people run away from it, right? I can speak
Hmm.
for my community a lot, and it was like hey, I ain't crazy. Like the other people would say when you talk about mental health, I ain't crazy. Who says where did that come from? Right. But because
Right.
they
Right.
train their mind to hear this word and automatically relate it to that word, then it becomes that thing where no one wants to talk about it. And then we don't get the help and support we need in our communities. So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I think that in schools, I think it's so critical, right? In schools, where are we seeing as we see the data, but also what do you envision, like as envision? No pun intended. What do you or maybe so. Well, what do you like seeing or feeling? And we're running out of time. And I apologize. We got in so deep to this conversation. We could talk for hours, but I want to respect your time. Maybe just as we get ready to wrap it up, like what are some things that you're excited about in schools? Or what are some things that you're either seeing or your people, your teams are trying, or schools that you work with in the PD world are trying to make
Yeah.
schools more accessible to all students?
Sure. And it's a we're in a thanks to, I mean, not thanks to, I mean, the pandemic, right, had a really devastating effect on state of schools right now. And I feel like I'm now a leader in our organization. I work with 4 schools. Um, we were knocked off the horse, so to speak, in many ways, right? Lots of people left the profession it's been hard to kind of attract the right teachers, set of teachers, to kind of to be present for our young people. Our young people were not well served during the pandemic, and they're relearning how to kind of just be productive folks in school. So there's just a lot of like, everybody kind of got knocked down. We're trying to pick ourselves back up. But in that moment, as we're picking ourselves up, what are the opportunities to like not necessarily return to an old practice that wasn't working well pre-pandemic, and maybe kind of like reinvent things here and there that serve all kids better. And while we're at it, let's think about the situation of young men and boys as a particular group to be paying attention to. So by that, what do I like? First of all, like, how can school be a bit more of an active place? It doesn't have to be, people are like running around everywhere and stuff, but like sitting and listening for long periods of time is not a good mode of learning for anyone, let alone what we know about some of the differences between boys and girls. How can we figure out ways? That's why I'm such a fan of project-based learning. How do we have ways where there's we're moving in and out of some group work, some individual work, there's some hands-on piece. Oh, here I'm going to take, after holding that proverbial pencil, what am I writing? Maybe I'm writing a script to a podcast, or, like I'm going to do a video recording on a podcast. And now I get to kind of work with my hands and set up. I see that beautiful microphone that you're talking into. Let's have students using the work, the writing that they did for Mr. Wells isn't just being handed to me so I can put a red pen to it. But they're actually going to hold that piece of paper up. They're going to read from it out loud into a microphone, hear their voice, learn a little bit about grammar and syntax by also creating something that pleases them. And then they're publishing that on the internet or something. Like, same set of skills. People are learning about subject, verb, paragraphs, the things that I need to care about as an English teacher. But project-based learning can help put students into the act of creation for an audience that's different than just me, the sweater vested English teacher, an audience that's external to me. So I can actually be the coach on the side, not the judge. And they see me as an ally for doing something that they want to share with the world that they're psyched about. And I think that's, if we can do that for all kids, we're going to have particular benefits for boys. Because we're just trying to get out of that sit and listen and try to sit on my hands mode when really all I want to do is just get up out of this chair and go shoot a basket right now, and or sing a song or whatever it is that's kind of animating them. And if we can, yes, they do need to learn how to sit still now and then and soak some stuff up. But if we can mix it up where they're able to take what they just listened to and learned and immediately apply it, I think we're going to have more kids be excited about what school has to offer. So I'm trying in this post-pandemic moment, Ashanti, to like, as we get back, as I kept saying, kind of stand back up. Can we go back to, not go back? Can we rebuild some of our muscles around things we know that work, like hands-on project-based learning? If I'm in a math class, when do I get to like, have shapes and things and I'm moving them around the table and learning about geometry in a tactile way, as opposed to just looking at a computer screen and thinking about things really abstractly. And I think if we see our boys thriving more, it's a little bit like how we think about serving students with special needs or students from underserved, communities. When we do well for them, we're probably doing well by everybody. And boys, and I think Black boys is a particular group that we serve a lot of those students at our schools, Envision Academy, right? As an example. I think that if we focus on making things better for them, we're going to find that everybody's benefiting. So that's kind of what's animating me right now, and why I kind of want to keep thinking about project-based learning, keep thinking about what are the metrics around how our boys are doing, because I think that will help inform the things that we try that are different, and we can maybe move things forward.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And thank you. First of all, thank you for that. And I think that PBL is something that I'm a huge fan of, and that we're trying to incorporate in some of our work on working with schools. I think we're going to have a part. We're going to have you back again to talk more about education because we just barely scratched the surface. But
Totally.
for parents out there who are hearing about this and say, you know what, my child needs a school like that. Can you tell them how they can find Envision Learning, how they can find out what are the ways that they should reach out to your school? Like if they've been looking for something like that. That's what I've been looking for. That's what my child needs. Please share with them how they can find you, find your school, and then we'll get ready to close down the show here.
Oh, great! Thank you for prompting me to do so. Envisionschools.org is easy to find website that kind of captures what our whole organization's up to. So if folks are in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have 4 schools: Hayward, San Francisco, Oakland, and we're welcoming students in all 3 campuses to be part of the learning experiences that we want them to be part of. And on a more national scale, we Envision Learning Partners is a subset of the org, and we do work with school districts and schools with professional development and leadership coaching around being able to kind of implement some of the ideas you've heard me talking about today, in their learning communities. Envisionlearning.org, but either way, envisionschools.org or envisionlearning.org are both part of the same mix. And we'd love to be in conversation with folks that are excited by these ideas.
Man, Justin, I'm so thank you. Sorry I went over time. I really we could talk for more, but I so appreciate you for being here. Folks, Justin and I, we share our mask publicly. You don't need to share your mask publicly if you're not ready, but you can go to millionmask.org. We will put the links to follow up with Justin and Envision Learning in the show notes. But Justin, thanks for being here with us today on the Talking with Educators podcast.
Yeah. Shawnee, I'm such a fan of your work, your mission. And so I've had the honor to kind of get to know you, but doubly so to get to participate in your podcast. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Folks, we'll see you soon. Justin, I'll see you soon. And we'll have you back again.
Cheers.
For sure. All right. Cheers, folks. Thanks for being here. Bye now.
Bye-bye.